Hello, Math and Finance students. I know you're super excited to learn all about partial payments today. So the plan with partial payments is now that we're super good at focal dates, there's really two different ways that mortgage companies and other companies are going to master and deal with your partial payments. So the first one is called merchant's rule, and what this means is that we have our timeline. So we have our loan, and then we have payment number 1, and then maybe payment number 2, and then we all go all the way in, so we'll say the last payment. Okay, so what's going to end up happening here is with merchant's rule, all of these get moved to the end. So this one moves all the way down to the end, this one gets moved down to the end, and the second payment gets moved down to the end. And then from there we make our equation of value and we deal with it. But in US rule we do something different. In US rule, so say we have our loan, and then our first payment, and our second payment, we'll do 3 payments again. So what we do here is we're going to take this to the next money. We're going to make that payment, and then we take that new value to the next money, and then we make that payment, and then we take this to the next money. So there's two main ways that this is going to happen. We're either going to make deposits where we add those partial payments in, or what's more common is you're going to see it with loans. But they end up being real similar numbers between merchant's rule and US rule, but they are different. So let's look at example 18 with this. So with example 18, here we have a loan, and these are two different timelines, because notice here the arrows, the money is moving differently, so we're still going to need to make a timeline for each of these, and they should be different. So an amount of $7,200 is borrowed, so that's our loan. So it's going to go at the beginning because it's happening now, and that's for 8 months. So 8 months is our duration, and then our rate here is 9.75%, or 0.0975 when we divide that by 100. After 3 months, we have a partial payment 3 months in. $4,500 is repaid, and we want to know what the balance is due at the end of the term, so this is our unknown right here. Now in both of these problems we start with this basic timeline, but again how it functions is going to change what's happening. So with merchant's rule, what really is happening is that the focal date is at the end. Okay, so that means we're going to take the $7,200 and we're going to move it all the way down. And notice here, since we're moving from the left to the right, we're going to move the money forward. So we're going to take $7,200 and we're going to move it forward with our rate 8 months. So T here is 8 months, or 8/12 of a year. Because remember, this is simple interest, so we do full years unless otherwise noted. And that's still going to be equal to the sum of the payments. That doesn't change. Which is what we were doing before. So I'm just going to color code these for you. Then we're going to take $4,500 and move it to the end as well. So here we're not going the full 8 months. Instead, we are going from 3 months to 8 months. So that would be a duration of 5 months, or 5/12 of a year. So here our T is 5/12. And then we have that last payment. So the payment I'm going to leave in blue because that's what we're after. So now we have our equation of 7,200 times 1 plus 0.0975 times 8/12 equals 4,500 times 1 plus 0.0975 times 5/12 plus x. And again, x we don't need anything on because it's at the end of our timeline, is where we want it. So let's look at calculating this. Okay, so first thing we have to do is we need to figure out what this 7,200 plus that piece is. So we're going to do 7,200 times, and then parenthesis 1 plus 0.0975 times 8/12. So we get 7,668, and we'd round that to the nearest penny, but in this case we don't need to. And now we're going to deal with our 45,000. So we take 4,500 times 1 plus 0.0975 times 5 over 12. So that we are going to round to the nearest penny. 4682.81, because here we have a 2 and the 2 tells us to keep it as is. We round down essentially. So that's again also a monetary value. So then for x, to get x alone, we would subtract the 46.82 from our 7,668 and then take that. So I'm going to store that in my memory. 7,668 minus my stored value. So we get 2985.19, rounding to the nearest penny, which makes sense because we have 81, so we're going to end in a 9. So that would be our last payment in this scenario. Now you can enter all of this at once and subtract this first and then put it all in at once. You'd use the same keystrokes, you just have to compound them. So it's totally up to you. Next, let's look at this problem using the other method for partial payments, the US rule. So in US rule, we start with the same basic timeline, but again, it's going to be a little bit different than what we were doing before because we're going to be moving things in a different way. So for our first step, I'm going to do that in red just like we did before. We're going to take the $7,200 and move it forward 3 months. So this means that our T would be 3/12 of a year. So we're going to take 7,200 times 1 plus 0.0975. So that part all stays the same, but we're going to multiply it by 3/12 this time. And then we're going to subtract 4,500 from that. Now, sometimes I do this as 2 separate steps, and sometimes I do it as one big step. It's totally up to you. You can work it either way. Let's get our calculator out and figure out what this is. So I'm going to do this all in one swoop, but again, you could do it as 2 separate steps if that's what you prefer. So we take 7,200 times, and then parenthesis 1 plus 0.0975, all of that stays the same, times 3 over 12, and our parenthesis, and then we're going to subtract 4,500. So when we do that, we get 2,875.50. Okay, but we're not done yet because this still needs to be moved forward. So now we're going to take this new number, because that's what we have left, is 2,875.50, and we're going to move that to the end of our 8 months. So we take 2,875.50, and again, notice here, just because it ends in a 5, I have my 0 in there because we're dealing with money, so we need 2 decimal places. 1 plus 0.0975 times, and then now we have to figure out our T. So just like what we did up here when we went from 3 months to 8 months, we said that was 5 months. So that means T is going to be 5/12 of a year. So pop that in our equation. And then we should be done because it's been moved. Now in a lot of the exercises in the textbook, you're going to have an extra step because there'll be 2 partial payments and then 1 more, just to help you think it through and help you get the rhythm of it. But this is the idea. So here, when we go back to our calculator, we can take this answer and just multiply it by 1 plus 0.0975 times 5/12 of a year. And that would be 2,992.3. And then here, the 1 has a 7 to the right of it. The 7 tells us to round up, so we get 32 cents. So again, here we get a really similar answer to what we did up here, but they are, almost $10 off, about $7 apart from each other. So we do get a different value, but they should be in the same ballpark. Now, the reason that I just multiplied my previous answer was because I didn't have, because it was already rounded to the nearest penny. If you had to do rounding in between here, then you'd want to use your rounded answer to plug it in, which I know makes the calculations a little bit more tedious, but it is worth doing it that way just to eliminate any potential rounding errors for your calculations.